Well, good evening. How are you all tonight? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I am Steve Smith. Well, we are at war with Russia. May not have been in the news. They may not have declared war, but anybody who's been paying any attention at all is not surprised by that we are at war with Russia. Was it last week or a few days ago, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, in a post-speech question and answer session, they asked him at what point did he think U.S. involvement would escalate from a proxy situation to direct war. He says, the West is in direct war with us. Regardless of what our media says, which you can't believe anyway, and regardless of what our government says, which you can't believe anyway, we are in direct war with Russia. Anytime you arm combatants against someone else and and I don't care what all their little tricky definitions are, and you give support to them, you are at war with them. If you look back and remember the Lusitania, you will understand the same thing. We have been headed in this direction for a long time, and I and many others have been talking about it. We're at war because we want a war. Our government, the American people, don't want a war with Russia. The American people know more about the truth of what's going on over there than most of the media will report. That's a good thing about social media. But our government does want war. Our government, the Democrat Party specifically, has wanted war with Russia for a long time. Russia don't play. Putin is not stupid. The way that Russia wages war is much different than the way we do. They accept a lot of losses. But rather than get into that, because a lot of other people have gotten into that, the important thing is, how is that going to affect you? That's it. You can't, well, you can dispute. There will be some out there who will say, we're not at war, we haven't declared war, we're not going to have war and all that. Those are the naysayers. Those are the people who don't think deeply. Now, for those of you who have followed me for a while, you may have noticed that I haven't been putting as many things up on YouTube as I used to. That's because I've been putting more stuff up over on Patreon, because we have a much different audience on Patreon than we do on YouTube. YouTube has a lot of drive-bys and trolls and people who will make statements without putting thought into them, and just to stir up arguments and just to show how smart they are. They're not smart, but they think that by making these idiotic statements that they sound smart. That's why more and more people are getting off of YouTube and going over to Patreon. But this one was important enough that I thought that I would put it on YouTube as well as Patreon. And that's because it's important for you to be thinking about how war is already affecting you and how it's going to affect you in the future. Now, what kind of war this is that we're already in, and what kind of war it's going to become, who knows? What it's going to become is difficult to say, except that when we see the history of our government, we can see that it's going to progress and progress and progress. World War II didn't start on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. It had been going on for a long time before that. Americans have a tendency to think of 1941 because that's when we were finally called into the combatant role. World War I didn't start with the sinking of the Lusitania, although many Americans seem to think that's what it was. And study the Lusitania and see how that compares with what we're doing in Ukraine right now. World War I started far before that. The war of northern aggression, the war between the states, It didn't start in 1861 with Fort Sumter. It started many years before that. So when we talk about war, people have a tendency to think about, well, we're not in a war until they declare a war and the shooting that affects me individually starts. Right now. We're in war now. It's already affecting you. It's affecting you with higher prices. It's affecting you with higher food prices, higher gas prices. It's affecting you with the way that our communications is being controlled, all of these things. But it's going to affect you a lot more. They won't be able to keep this so-called proxy under wraps for very much longer, I don't think. If you follow what Lavrov says, and he's one to watch. I've watched him for years and years. What the Russians say mean things. They mean things, and intelligent people can, for the most part, kind of follow the bouncing ball with it. You know, what our leaders say. Sadly, I mean, this is disgusting to me as an American. It's embarrassing to me. What our leaders say means very little. They don't say what they mean. They don't mean what they say. You look at what our government has done to our country. You look at what happened in Afghanistan. You look at what's happening at the southern border. You see that the war against us is being supplied and manned and all by our own government. But in the midst of this, our government is making warlike moves against Russia. What's going to come, and this is where you need to give long, hard thought about, is how you need to deal with it. And preparedness, yes, preparedness is how you're going to deal with it. But what is going to happen as a result of the escalation of this war? And I think we can be sure that it's going to escalate over the next, 12 to what are we now, 14 months, as we come into the next presidential election. I think we're going to be, I won't say surprised. I think it's going to be interesting what happens. As things come about that should surprise us, sadly, we're not going to be surprised. We're going to say, yeah, that figures. But how that's going to affect you over the next 12 to 14 months, and maybe beyond then, is what you need to think about now and think about very, very seriously. If you are prepared, if you have prepared according to what I call and what we talk about on the Patreon channel, I'm going to give a plug right here. If you're serious about preparedness, I invite you to come over to our Patreon channel. The link is down below. It's only $1 a month, and you get an unbelievable amount of information beyond what I put on YouTube now. And it's not just from me. It's from many of our contributors, many of our members over there who post on the member posts page. These are successful preppers. Okay. Too often on the YouTube channel, I'm making a short aside here. Too often on the YouTube channel, the comment sections are peppered, not completely. Well, I have some smart people on here too. But it's the people who want to splash around in the basics. The basics aren't going to help you much longer. If you're stuck in the basics, and here I did one on this, my last one, and it was, you need to evolve. You need to evolve beyond the basics. You need to evolve beyond the 2 weeks of food and a new knife and a new go bag and a new gun and all that. That is silly stuff for anybody who is serious about preparedness. Serious preparedness means that you are preparing to be able to live well no matter what circumstances, no matter what challenges come down the road. Many people in the YouTube verse will say, well, you can't prepare. See, that's the limitations of their thinking. They think you can't prepare beyond a certain point. You can, you should, and you must, if you want to live a good life, a decent life, after whatever's coming down the road comes down the road, and it can be done. Horrible things happen all the time. Has happened through history. Some people live well through them, others don't, and it all depends on what they do to prepare for it. So that's why I want to invite people. If you're not with us on Patreon, you owe it to yourself to come over there. But here's what's going to happen. Inflation is going to continue. Financial instability is going to continue. Now, if you're having trouble now, I hope you're not. People who have prepared are not having trouble now, to be real honest. Yeah, things cost more. But that's part of preparedness. Because you just don't stock beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. You know what else you stock? Bucks. The fourth B that nobody wants to talk about, or most people don't want to talk about. You should have money. You should make and stack your money. That's what gets you through hard times more than anything else. And most, maybe I won't say most, many people who consider themselves preppers don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it because, to be honest, they haven't done a very good job with it. That's the cold, brutal truth, and that's too bad. But that's why they continue to complain about how hard times are. You know what to do when times are hard? That's when you say, good thing I prepared. Things are tougher for people around me. Things cost a little bit more now, but you know what? I'm fine. That's what preparedness is. This is the kind of preparedness you have to either have or build in order to do well in the coming times. I doubt that there's going to come a day to when either we or Russia will declare war against the other. I also doubt that there's going to be any kind of nuclear exchange. It could be. I know a lot of people are out there trying to scare everybody that there is going to be. It could be, but I doubt it. What do I base that on? Well, I base it on my opinion that is a result of everything that I read and hear. Same as other people, okay? I could be wrong. They could be wrong. But when you think of the comparative probabilities, the probability that things will continue to go about, although getting more and more tense between the United States and Russia, and that these tensions will result in greater economic instability. You compare that with the potential for a nuclear exchange, I would say that the increased instability and the increased threats, economic instability, is greater. Right? And that's what you have to prepare for. You can't hide from it. I tell you why a lot of people, I think, in the preparedness world, I think why a lot of people hang on to these things that, the financial system is going to collapse, we're going to be in a nuclear exchange, we're going to World War, we're going to this, we're going to that, is because they're not doing well now. And they don't want to put the effort, the work, the investment into what it would take to prepare for that. Maybe they don't know how, maybe they don't have the ability to do it, I don't know. But when a person says something can't be done, or when they say the sky is falling, when they say, it's all about to come to an end, or the end of the world, or whatever is like this, you see, that person has given up. I hope I'm not talking about you. That person has given up. They're no longer fighting. They're simply excusing why they're no longer fighting. Or maybe they never did fight. Maybe they just always wanted to complain. We've all known a lot of people like that, haven't we? Are hard times coming? Yes, I think they are. Because hard times are always coming. That's the nature of history. We have ups and we have downs. We have good times, we have bad times. Easy times, hard times. Hard times are coming. Hard times are coming mainly because of the nature of our own government. If we had a strong government that cared about the American people, we wouldn't be dealing with many of these problems, if any of them. But we have a government which has turned its back on its own people. Not just turned its back, but turned around and faced its own people and taken an active stance against us. That's what's happened. They've set us up to fail and to fall. Now, if that fall comes, that's even greater than an elevation of the tension between the United States and Russia as that fall comes. But instead of tearing your hair out and running around in a circle like a chicken with his head cut off, screaming, oh, it's all falling, nothing can be done, what are we going to do, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't it make more sense to take whatever steps you can to insulate yourself from the troubles that could be coming your way? Yes, it does. I'll answer that question for you. Yes, it does. And I want you to do that. If you're listening to my channel, the message that I want you to hear is, yes, times can be tough, but it's up to you to make sure that you make it through in as good a shape as possible. That's why we say we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. You're not going to live well tomorrow if you don't prepare well today. It doesn't matter whether it's the end of the world or simply life as life normally happens. People who live well now are those who have prepared to live well. Not prepared to hide, not prepared to give up and just complain about how horrible things are. Complaining serves really no purpose, right? Except that it gets you a lot of people who are more than willing to complain with you, right? You'll find yourself in a large club, in a large crowd if you just want to complain. The smaller crowd, the smaller club of those who buckle down and do the things that it takes to secure their future, secure the future of their children and their grandchildren. And right now there's somebody out there typing because this is on YouTube. It wouldn't happen if this were just on Patreon. On Patreon, the people are going to be, come over to Patreon and you will see the people will be using examples from their own life saying that's exactly right. Here's how we did it. Here's how you can do it. Or asking questions. Here's where I am now. What should I do next? But on YouTube, there are people right now who are typing and saying, nothing can be done. This is the end. Nothing can be done. If you think that we're getting out of this, you're crazy. Which group do you want to be in? If you are truly interested in preparedness, you want to be in the ones who are willing to put in the work. Because what are those people who aren't willing to put in the work? Right? Just look around you. What are people called who aren't willing to work? Okay. Listen, when I talk about real, total preparedness, that's what I write about in my books. For those of you who may be new to me, I wrote the Stonemont series. Here. I'll show them to you right here. I probably should. The Stonemont series, the complete plan, I call it, for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything. The reversion, the revival, the renewal, an appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and hostages to fortune. The complete plan in 6 novels. Yes, guys, I'm working on the 7th one right now. I know I've had a lot of you ask. If you're serious about preparedness and you haven't read these, this should be your very next step. Before you buy anything, before you buy another knife, before you think about something else for your go bag, read these. These explain to you exactly how to prepare, not just for today, but intergenerationally, and that's important. People who don't understand the importance of intergenerational preparedness aren't serious about preparedness. You can get them Amazon. You can get them through Amazon if you'd like. The link's down below. The best way to get them from me is through our website, stonemont.us. Stonemont.us. The link is down below. That I get to sign them for you if you'd like. If you buy them through the Stonemont website, there's a place on the order there that says, what would you like Steve to write in your book? And I'm happy to do it. Love to do that. I prefer to have orders come through our website because I love my relationship with my readers. People have been learning from these since 2017. Hundreds of thousands of people all across the world have read these. There are people who have read through the whole series 6 times and continue to learn. They say, I my 6th time through, and I keep finding things I missed the first 5 times. Get them. This will tell you, if the whole world falls apart, this will tell you how to be all right. If we go to war, well, it's a little bit different story, but it's the best way to start. Don't fool yourself into thinking that 2 things. Don't fool yourself into thinking that everything's going to be all right. It's not. Things are far beyond the point to where they're just going to work out okay. Also, don't fool yourself into thinking that nothing can be done and that it's just all collapsing and it's the most horrible thing it's ever been. I know I hear this all the time. It's never been this bad in the history of the world. To those people I say, you need to restudy your history. It's been this bad many times. Oh yeah, Stonemont mugs. By the way, we finally, just this afternoon, we have caught up with all of the orders. We have just been swamped with all the orders for the mugs, for the books, for the t-shirts, all of that. Just this afternoon, we sent the last bunch that had been snacking up on the orders and to the post office. We have now fulfilled all of the orders. So if you've been waiting on something, it's on its way to you. Stone Mountain mug, people love that. Let me take a sip before I close this out. When I tell people that they need to do better for themselves, I tell them this: you have to decide whether you are worth it or not. And if you ask me, I don't know you personally, but when I talk to people personally, I look them in the eye and say, you are worth it, but you have to understand that you are. And you have to understand that the responsibility of doing the right things in your life to prepare and to insulate yourself from the problems, the responsibility is yours. It's nobody else's. You have to do it. But in order to do it, you have to understand that it can be done, and it can be done. Serious preparedness, advanced preparedness, total preparedness. Somebody else now is typing, total preparedness can't be done. You know who that guy is? He's the one that won't put in the work to do it. That's right. Realize that. He's the guy that won't put in the work to do it. Is that you, or are you willing to put in the work? Doesn't matter if you're just starting out or advanced. It matters what you're willing to do from this point forward. Recognize realistically the threats that are out there, and then be determined to do what it takes to prepare to withstand those threats and to live well through them. Okay? All right. Hard times are coming. So what? So what? It's up to you how hard those times are on you. Do something about it. Work hard. Do what you know you should, and you'll be fine. Okay? Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. You're going to live tomorrow exactly however you have prepared to live. So, it's up to you. We're in a war. War's here. It's going to increase. We'll see what happens. But how it affects you is up to you. You all have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.